tournament.
You could send 2 groups to South America. You could send 2 groups to North America, and then meet for the final in North America.
Central America.
Panama.
Cuba.
Exactly. The Saracens players could go and visit company's house in Panama. Be perfect for them. Get some business done.
Right, come on then. Let's get into this final. And firstly, and again, sticking with the positives, you have to congratulate South Africa. It's interesting you just mentioned it was a neutral for one of the quote-unquote Tier 1 sides. And that's the 3rd different country that South Africa have won it in. They've won it in Asia, they've won it in the Northern Hemisphere, and they've won it in their home...
South Africa.
South Africa. It's the 3rd continent.
Third continent and 3rd country.
Third country. But just to highlight that not only have they won it again after 12 years, they've won their 3rd out of 7 World Cups that they've participated in, but they've done it again without home field advantage and, about as far away from South Africa as you could get culturally and all the rest of it. So, I mean, fair play.
It's awesome.
Fair play. And after that first game,
and I'm so glad they won. I'm not glad because they beat England. I'm glad because of the way that they won it. And I'm, in a week where we've had Rugby X and, everyone whining about skills, is skills the future, teach skills to kids, this, that and the other. I'm so glad that big men won the Rugby World Cup. Bludgeoning big men. And it fills my heart with joy. It fills my heart with joy that the scrimmage meant something too. And we're so quick.
The scrimmage meant everything.
Exactly.
It meant everything.
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 The set piece was important. Line out and the scrum. And that's sort of what rugby should be about. Skills are great, but only if you've done all the fundamentals. And I loved watching them put the fundamentals in.
Well, I mean, the scrum has been depowered over the last few years. It has been.
Well, what happened? I mean, scrums are the old concussions, right? Because it used to be everyone is going to have serious injuries and no one will ever be able to play rugby again if we don't address the scrum.
Yeah.
It doesn't strike me that they solved any of the issues with the scrum to start with, but they've just moved on to something else now.
But they took out the hit, which was...
But the hit's more for resetting. It's not really... The hit was removed, so the scrum set was more stable.
But it was also that you're taking a massive amount of impact. So I agree, it stabilises the scrum, and that was one of the reasons that you're doing it. But you had teams using it as an attacking weapon. So Adam Jones, when they took out the hit, his career went downhill.
Yeah, I mean, there was some real technique in getting that hit right. But interestingly, they had a scrum machine, I've mentioned this before, in France, made by a missile manufacturer. I want to say it's like the Thales Group or someone like that. And this scrum machine, it was big data before big data, I guess, and measuring everything. And one of the things that they found out is it was the hit, not the fact that people were buckling and falling down because the hit pressure was so great. They were hitting and bouncing back out the scrum, and that's what was forcing scrums down. Yeah,
you weren't able to get a clean bind.
That's right, yeah.
So you get an uneven bind.
Yeah.
This game it really showed the value. You're exactly right, Jay, the point you made before. You can have all the skills, and all the skills are brilliant. If you don't have the fundamental building blocks, you've got to earn the right to showcase your skills. If you fail to do that, you will get destroyed.
Exactly, and it was good to see, not because it was England, just because I love that brand of rugby.
Yes, and even notwithstanding that, and there's no denying that, as you say, the scrum was incredibly important, but it wasn't just important because of the field position and the points that it gave South Africa. I think they got 6 penalties in the first half from scrums, and 9 of their 12 points in the first half came from scrum penalties. I mean, that's huge, but
massive.
Not just that, but what I found disappointing about it was the psychological impact it had on the England side. And in absolute stark contrast, I talked on last week's podcast after the semi-final about it just blowing my mind seeing the shocked expression, like the 1,000-yard stare on Kieran Reid and Sam Whitelock, men who've won 2 World Cups and over 100 caps each. And you saw that same 1,000-yard stare on England guys after 10 minutes.
That's what's so for all the things that teams talk about, leadership and we're so confident and this, that, and the other, until metaphorically, until you get punched in the face, you don't really know. The same happened to Kieran Reid, and I would have liked to have seen England try to figure out that scrum a little bit smarter. I don't know exactly what they could have done, but I'm sure there are things, and they should have. They needed to do something, and I think from the players, it had to come from management, and I would have made a change early doors actually.
They were forced into it, and we'll never know what would have happened had Carl Sinclair
Yeah, I mean, I
Been on
don't
the
think
field.
Kyle Sinclair is the answer to the scrummage per se, but maybe he makes the South Africans work a bit harder.
We'll never know.
All that, the whole scrummage dominance might have happened if we didn't see a single scrum with Kyle Sinclair. They might have been that dominant with him in because they simply targeted so heavily the scrum. We don't know that. What I would attribute is the way that England played as a consequence of
Yes.
knowing the fact that if they play too risky rugby and they have a knock-on, it's not a knock-on, they are giving a penalty to South Africa.
Yes.
So they played by contrast to how they played against Australia for the first 65 minutes, how they played against Argentina in the second half, how they played against New Zealand, they played so narrow and ended up going down that one-out rugby route.
I know.
Which is the last thing you want to do against South Africa.
It's something amazing that South Africa, it's like one of those tractor beams in sci-fi movies. They just drag you in. South Africa just make you play the way they want you to play.
Well, I've got an unpopular opinion for you. It just showed the quality of the Welsh performance to be within 3 points of South Africa and to play them at their own game. Maybe it wasn't as mad as we all thought.
Yeah. And with a huge number of injuries as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that is a great point from this game.
Yeah, perhaps. I think South Africa, in contrast to England, who were way off where they were mentally and in accuracy and in every measure, South Africa were a lot better.
What did you make?
They saved their best rugby for the final.
They did.
So there's a few things I'd like your opinion on. What was your take on, I think 5 minutes in, England play a backs move from underneath their own sticks? Was that just extreme confidence or was that madness?
Well, so my take on that was, and I understand the decision. I think that they'd obviously spoken about South Africa are dropping all three of their back three players right back, expecting kicks.
Yeah.
If we just kick it, we've got Cheslin Colby, Villy LaRue and Mapimpi just in the backfield waiting for it. We can't just let them do that. We have to keep them honest and make them join the defensive line, and then that will give us more space to then kick into. And there was a few times when George Ford actually kicked really well territorially and found grass. But it wasn't just that. It was the pass from Owen Farrell behind the sticks was woeful. It hit the deck.
Yeah.
The pass from Ben Youngs, going for the miracle pass over the head of Anthony Watson into touch. The pass from Billy Vunipola in his own 22, picking up from number 8 and just throwing it on the deck. It was like, where was this team that had the Japan-like handling of last week?
Because the conditions as well, they spoke about the conditions in the game and said it's been a perfectly dry, nice temperature, low humidity, reasonable temperature. It is the perfect conditions to play attacking handling rugby. So you can't blame anything on that. You can blame it on pressure, and you can potentially blame it on perhaps they played their final a week too early. They were so built up and
maybe Gatlin was right about that.
Yeah,
he's very rarely wrong.
Such a game plan to beat the All Blacks and so efficiently destroyed the All Blacks that they couldn't do it.
So
a week later.
So I don't actually think that. I mean, I was thinking at the time, what are you doing?
Johnny May tapped and went on his own 22. Did you see that as well?
Well, because they don't want lineouts. It was it's South Africa make you play. Wales did the same thing last week. They never kicked a touch because
it's not the first time they've taken quick taps like that. They really sped up the tempo in the Argentina game.
Different kind of game, you might argue.
It's a different game. It's a different calibre of opposition, but it's the same strategy.
Yeah.
They tapped, went, and then rather because it was only a free kick. Remember, they tapped, went, and then they did a box kick which stayed in field on that Johnny May tap and go inside his own 22. So I understand why they did it, but again, and you got to credit South Africa for this. England were forced to play at a ridiculously slow tempo. They were forced to not kick because they had their three guys back there, and they were forced to scrum and fear giving away penalties.
And they couldn't get through that South African defence. That's the other thing. I mean, they just lined up with big bodies, and they slammed everyone.
Yes, I don't want to criticise the defence because it was heroic.
I mean,
the defence
was superb.
But South Africa made their defence easy by slowing the ball down at the ruck.
Yes,
very effectively. They played the referee. What was disappointing was we said. On our podcast on Thursday, South Africa will slow the ball down at the ruck.
And England know that.
Failed. So we knew that. The England team must have known that.
Yeah.
But
I have no sympathy for it.
Yeah, they failed to counteract. And that's what's disappointing.
Yes.
England failed to come up with a strategy.
Or maybe the big lesson is we should be in charge of the England side.
Well,
I'm not sure. I identified that. I'm not sure we came up with an effective strategy to counteract it.
Well, no, that's true.
We at least identified.
We identified the issue.
I think I might mention something last week which would have been of interest. Particularly with hindsight now, which is you don't pick 2 sevens to beat 2 sevens. 2 sevens ruin other people's breakdowns, but they don't look after your own. And maybe they did need a bigger bodied guy to hit rucks, like a James Haskell who just clears out everything. And I tell you, the guy who can do that, Mark Wilson. Mark Wilson is a bloody phenomenal rucker. So he just sees a ruck and he destroys everything within a 10-yard radius.
I think Tom Curry and Sam Underhill are excellent at cleaning rucks out.
Their work rate
but usually by virtue of being the first people there.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, that's absolutely fair. But like James Haskell in his prime was great at that because he would work hard to the ruck and then he would just blow everything away.
I'll tell you who they were missing. Miles Benjamin.
Yes.
Yes,
Phil.
On the wing.
Yes.
Serious rucking.
Every other ruck hit. So the 2 sevens for me didn't work particularly well this game, and I wonder if they should have adapted that strategy. And the other one as well I'd like to mention is just the sheer quality of the performance from Dwayne Vermaelen. I mean, you spoke about those 3 guys at the back, and I know number 8s do go back to gather kicks, but you just saw the importance of having a big guy in the air, someone that you can't shift, you can't knock out the way, and he'd gather that ball and just start charging forward.
He was a menace at the breakdown as well.
And again, menace at the breakdown, and again, a bigger guy who you can't move.
Yeah, which is one thing we said.
Yeah.
Those, it's all well and good clearing Surveyor, Kane, Hooper, Pocock, all about 100 kg. When you're trying to clear 120 kg Dwayne Vermaelen, 127 kg Etzebeth, 130 kg Malherbe.
Yeah,
it's a different ball game.
120
kg Peter Steph-Toy.
He was amazing.
Well, at what point did you think, like not just this isn't good? At what point did you think, we're losing this, we're going down?
First scrum for me. So I turned around to my friend and said, I'm going to put a bet on here for a 15-point win for South Africa after about 10 minutes. And I bottled it because I just failed in my accumulator the night before. But I thought basically in the first 10 minutes, if England don't get some sort of toehold in the game, and that was the disappointing part, they never established any sort of...
Well, it's interesting there because the point, I made a note of it here, that during the game I just went 3-0 down. We've just lost it. So we were 3-0 down, and George Ford put in a really great tactical kick, found grass deep in South African territory, forced Villy LaRue to kick it out, and England had a line out in between the 10-metre line and the 22. And I thought, right, here we go.
Yep.
Here we go. This is the attacking position. Let's go. And we ballsed up the line out.
Yeah.
Then that led to... that meant it was
steal?
Sorry?
Was that a steal from Peter Steph-Toy?
Laws knocked it on. It was under pressure, but Laws knocked it on. So we ballsed up the line out. So it all slowed down again. The scrum took 2 minutes before it was taken. This is the other thing. These scrums have got to be sorted out because
why? They were great.
The scrums were great, but they take so long.
So I actually said this to Phil, right? And this is no word of a lie. I was in his very, very nice genteel party. And I said, I much prefer this pace of game because I like to spread the game out over 2.5 hours or whatever it is.
The amount of time it takes to get a scrum set it's getting ridiculous. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So we ballsed up a line out. After the first time we had really good territory, and I thought, right, here we go. We knocked on the line out, scrum, penalty, but it was a penalty which should never have been a penalty. And there was a few of those because South Africa pushed before the ball was in. Garces gave the penalty. Garces gave the penalty, and Jamie George stood up and said to Garces, you heard it on the ref mic, how can that be a penalty for that? The ball wasn't in.
Yeah. Jamie George's job there is to shut up and then push harder earlier then.
Yeah.
That's his job.
Well, no, you don't push before the ball's in.
It doesn't matter.
But anyway,
if they are, you do.
But at that point, I said, I said, we've lost. We've lost.
So I left it a lot later than that. And there was the penalty just before half-time on the 39th minute, which made it a 6-point game. And then after 45 or 46 minutes, there was a scrum just inside England's half that South Africa destroyed us. They slot the penalty. They make it... After 45 minutes, it's a 9-point game. And the whole trend and trajectory of the game was going so far away from us. And I was like, right, that is it. And after that, after I kind of resigned to that, before then it was the hope. It was the hope that, no, we can turn this around. We can play like we did against the All Blacks.
Yep.
We can change this. And the hope...
There was no threat, was there?
There wasn't. And I come back to the point I made earlier, which was because a knock-on from us was so costly.
Yeah.
A knock-on is not just a knock-on. A knock-on is actually either 3 points if you're in your own half, or it's a line-out 50 metres downfield if you're in their half.
Yeah.
It was so costly. We were so narrow. And there was a period in the first half where England had the 3-minute advantage.
Yeah.
Where England...
That was ridiculous.
Did nothing other than play one-out rugby.
I know.
And then just ended up going backwards and backwards and backwards.
No, there wasn't just one-out rugby. When they did go wider, they then went to like, what's he doing? Ben Youngs, it could just... Elliot Daly, could just give the ball to Sam Underhill. But no, I'll go for the big looping miracle ball.
But the problem with that was...
But
they only played wide
Yeah.
once they had burnt every single option they had.
Yeah.
Once every forward had carried like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I think I remember saying at this passage of play, like, they looked knackered. Both of
were
the
done.
Vunipola boys were walking back into position.
But the Vunipola boys made 5 or 6 carries in that one session.
It isn't a knock on their ability or their work rate. They've just had to carry too much in that phase of play.
Yeah.
And because, well, I mean, it's a chicken and an egg thing. It's they played one-out rugby, but... and I'm not... right, okay, so Twitter is a ridiculous place.
What?
As we know. Twitter's a ridiculous place. You two things can be true, except on Twitter. So South Africa can be the best team, won on merit, deserved to win, played the best rugby.
Defence amazing.
Defence amazing, strategy just right, tactically brilliant, scrum overpowered.
Amazing.
And I can think also, Jerome Garces didn't make it the spectacle that deserved to be.
I thought he did fine. Honestly,
the reason I bring it up at that point is that 3-minute advantage, which was ridiculous in itself.
Yes, it was ridiculous.
I was certain the advantage would gone.
Yeah.
Because they had a try scoring opportunity.
Yes, they had a try scoring
So
opportunity.
we had a bit of blazing row about this.
Yeah.
Like, I think 35 phases or whatever it is too much. Call me old-fashioned.
Especially when you get within 1 yard of the try
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
That is a try scoring opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm someone who says if you go for a drop goal or go for a kick, crossfield kick, and your player's up to compete for it right near the try line and you miss it, well, that's your opportunity gone.
Yeah, bye.
That's what you chose to do. But that whole passage, I've watched it again, and it's what we said about Garces last week, and it's what he does. So I'm not surprised, and England should have dealt with it better.
Yeah.
But man alive, I thought when that first penalty of the game happened within a minute from Courtney Laws, I thought, brilliant. I mean, it was bad start for England, but I thought, brilliant. He's going to blow his whistle straight away on rucks. If there's any infringement, great.
Yeah.
Because he gave Courtney Laws no time.
Yeah. It was half a second.
Half a second, like, done.
Hard
I mean, the ball could have come out quite easily. But so I thought, great. And then there was the one on 10 minutes with Itoje where Itoje jackaled, and, you know, I had a cup of tea, and then a South African arrived, and South Africa got the penalty, got the scrum somehow, which turned into a penalty. But that 3-minute passage, like, I mean, fair play. They are savvy and they are cynical, and they played it brilliantly. And I applaud South Africa for it because they played to the referee. But the referee allowed so much time
what I don't get
for South Africans to put their hands on the ball.
I get that. But then, if that's the case, why not kick the ball to South Africa and use Underhill and Curry to do exactly the same thing? I mean, they're perfectly well equipped to do so.
Well, we saw. Well, there were a couple of occasions, as with Itoje, where I mentioned,
where
the
Itoje
it was
one was
like,
horrendous.
Sorry, haven't you just like? Anyway, but
rugby incident, Tim.
But South Africa dealt with it better, played the ref better, and that's what you have to do. And but I found that passage incredibly frustrating because I don't know with the chicken or egg. Yes, England lacked a bit of imagination and were just going one-out rugby, but that was partly a consequence of the fact that Garces was just allowing people to lie all over the ball and hold on to it for that extra couple of seconds. I
just say, go and do the same thing to South Africa. And that's a lack of leadership in my mind, because someone needs to say, boys, they're doing it. We either have to counter that or we need to do it ourselves.
Well,
Jamie George standing up in the scrum saying, "Sir, they're pushing too early." Don't care.
Well,
early.
England kind of did. This is what I say. I'm talking about the spectacle in general, not just England losing.
But I thought the spectacle was marvellous.
No, I didn't think the spectacle was what it could be, because South Africa showed in the last 10 minutes when it got loose and it was, that England were absolutely goosed, that they could just, that they have the talent to rip them to shreds. And I think a Nigel Owens or a Wayne Barnes would have facilitated South Africa still winning.
Yeah.
But it would have been more of a spectacle.
Oh, I don't know. I was quite happy with how it went personally. Not the result. I loved the game. I loved the physicality of it. I loved how he let the scrimmage develop. I mean, it wasn't Garces losing the line out.
Do you think neutrals? I mean, because you're not...
I don't know. I do not know what other people think.
I don't think they would like that game.
There's some people like some people like touch rugby. I don't know how other people think, but for me, it's very enjoyable. And it doesn't matter which... I mean, I found the Wales game enjoyable because it was a fascinating tactical battle. So maybe don't take my word too much on it. But I liked it.
Fair enough. But that was... The 2 tries were South Africa's first ever tries in a World Cup final.
Is that right?
In their third World Cup final.
The Mpimpi one was pretty special.
Yeah,
Not because of how good it was. It's because Am passed the ball and didn't even look to see if Mpimpi's going to... He just wandered off.
Yeah.
Coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was cool. The second try, when you are, after whatever it was, 76 minutes, when you are absolutely gassed, the last thing you want to see is...
Cheslin Colby.
Turn over the ball straight to Cheslin Colby.
That was some try, wasn't it?
And it was Farrell inside him was Dan Cole and Joe Marler treading water inside him.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Well, missed tackles matter, you see. Even though he cut inside, weirdly, they do matter. I would have made some changes if I was Eddie Jones. I think Marler should have come on much earlier. In fact...
Much earlier than 45 minutes?
Yeah, 20 minutes. I think I wanted to see some old-fashioned Eddie nastiness. Do you know when he hooked...
Luther Burrell, Tamina Harrison.
Yep. Boys, get off. This isn't for you. And the other one...
would have been, given how well...
Was Mako that bad?
And Mako was holding up his end of the scrum.
They were getting absolutely pasted on the tight head side, not the loose head side.
If you're going forward on one side, it does affect the other side. And I thought when Marler came on, the scrum actually improved on his side. So Marler, definitely. The other guy as well, I would have started with, would have been George Cruz. I think he's better equipped to handle the South African power than Courtney Laws. Courtney Laws is better to come on later on with a bit of impact, but actually he's not a huge bloke, not in the same way that Cruz is.
I think, what would you have shepherd crooked Laws?
No, I wouldn't have started him.
Well, that's easy to say with hindsight, but I actually think, given the way the game panned out, taking off Laws just after half time,
Wilson would have started as well
instead of.
Well, that's a good point, because with hindsight, I mean, if I told you Underhill, you'd think I was insane.
Going into the game, I would have said.
But now I mean, that's why Eddie Jones gets paid £600,000 a year, and I do a podcast. So it is for him to make these decisions. And I think I said it on the last podcast. You need something different to protect breakdowns.
No,
I think it is great saying stuff like that with hindsight.
Yeah.
But
well, look, if
no one would have made those calls before the game.
I mean, we all called England to win, but between the three of us, we actually outlined a pretty good way of how South Africa would play. If we know that,
I would just highlight in our pre-World Cup podcast at Twickenham, I was the only one of the three of us that said South Africa would win the tournament.
You did.
What did I say? France.
You said France. Although we all predicted South Africa would get to the final.
Yeah. We did.
And by definition, I had to pick France.
Yes, because you'd already predicted.
Yeah, there's nowhere else for me to go. And France would have won that yesterday. I have no doubt France would have won. which is a shame of the whole tournament.
So, I mean, I'm kind of torn because, as we said at the start of the podcast, there's England did incredibly well to get there, played some brilliant rugby, have one of the youngest, I think that was the youngest ever side that's played a World Cup final.
Yeah.
Which is one of the... after a fair few beers last night, I was looking for positives, and that was one of the positives. I was running through that team and saying, well, other than Dan Cole, who's 33, pretty much everyone will be potentially available.
Well, okay,
for if there's a World Cup in 4 years' time.
Yeah, there's a few things which happen now. I mean, World Cup cycles are so brutal, aren't they? Because it's so finite. I don't know how the boys pick themselves up for the autumn internationals or what that sort of rugby looks like when they eventually play. I mean, that's going to be an incredibly weird couple of games. I do think we're going to see a changing of the guard for England. Not necessarily because their players are too old, but I think they've got so much young talent behind them too.
I'm not going along with that for the reason I just said that it's such a young.
Well, Youngs is going to go, right?
No, I don't think so.
I would say Youngs would go. I'd say Laws is going to go.
No,
No, Laws won't go.
What's Laws? 30?
I don't think that matters. Win the next game.
Laws is 30.
Win the next game.
Yeah, look, I'm with you on that. I think you should win the next game. But we all know how World Cup cycles are.
Well, Eddie Jones, is Eddie Jones going to stay in charge for the next couple of years?
I think he has to.
I think there's a compelling argument that he should.
I would definitely want him.
I
would definitely want him for, I would say, for the full next World Cup cycle.
What?
So he's contracted till 2021.
He's got to go.
I don't like having the half and half World Cup cycle.
Yeah. So it was one or the other.
Yeah, and I definitely...
Well, it did all right. Rasmus Erasmus managed it all right.
He did.
So maybe Gatland for the final 2 years.
Yeah, well...
Let have a couple of years in New Zealand, Gats, then come on back.
Tell you what, I would
definitely have Eddie Jones for the next 4 years. I would say if
your choice is Eddie for 2 and Gatland for 2, you'd be mad not to take it. Other than that, I think you move on from Eddie Jones now. It's been
who
two and the right. So one thing you can say is that squad, unlike a couple of years ago where it appeared like there were cracks and there were maybe issues and people were talking about training regimes and stuff, that group were incredibly happy and motivated and totally behind Eddie Jones.
They are until they're not, though. I mean, I've always said this. They are until they're not.
But they are. So he shouldn't. I don't see the logic of saying now. A couple of years ago, I might have been. I would have said, or 18 months ago, I would have been saying, "Oh, Eddie Jones will do the World Cup, then he'll go."
The whole
I think most
confidence thing, I think, is a veneer. I think a lot of these rugby cultures are just veneers. Whether they be talking about how much they care about their mothers in meetings or being great citizens or whatnot, it's all nonsense. And I think England are no different. They say that they're happy, and we've got. I mean, what else are they going to say? What else would you possibly say if you were in the England World Cup camp other than this is the best?
France.
It's not just saying they're happy. It's when you go.
Are they actually happy?
When you go on Instagram and you look at them having coffee with the boys or going around Disneyland together or going around Harajuku together, they do.
Yeah, and there's probably two minders with cattle prods saying "smile" whilst you get this on Instagram,
and then they don't speak to each other afterwards.
And when professionally, I mean, you don't have to all be best mates, but when professionally they come together and play what people were talking about as the best rugby that's been played in the last 4 years.
Do you think
by any team?
Do you think you can get away with being a top-class international rugby team without being best mates?
Yeah.
I think you could do. I don't think England are in that position.
Yeah. No, just a general question there. So if you think about
it's like it should be like any job, really, shouldn't it?
No, because the army's not like any job, and I guess professional sports is more like the armed forces than anything else, which is you're not trained to fight for king and country. You're trained to fight for the guy next to you. And I think that does matter, particularly in team sports, contact sports like rugby.
I believe it does matter.
Yeah.
It does.
Hated Phil.
Best mates. I would maybe qualifying the best mates. You need to know. You need to care about the guy next to you. Yeah.
Yes. You can't just be an absolute arse.
Yeah.
I guess.
But I think this England team do have that. From everything that I've seen, and I have absorbed a lot of content over this World Cup.
Oh, you've made a lot of content over this World Cup, to be fair.
Yeah. I really think they've got that. And so I would not be calling for Eddie Jones' head at all.
No, I'm not calling for his head, but I think once the contract runs out...
in 2 years.
But isn't he meant to be transitioning to another coach now? Wasn't that the idea?
That was a potential option if they have the right candidate.
I think that's a mess.
I think that is a mess. Yeah, I think you've got to have full cycles.
Yeah.
I know Razzie's just done it on 2 years, but
imagine being the guy trying to work with Eddie Jones.
That doesn't work.
Alpha males. Gatland. Imagine trying to integrate Gatland
with Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones.
No.
In fairness, John Mitchell, which we all called out as being a potential disaster.
Yep.
That has been very, very good in England's defence.
John Mitchell could be England's next coach.
I never liked the number 2 going to number 1.
Dean Ryan.
You have called it before.
Dean Ryan, there we go. That's our man. Very highly thought of in your review.
Well, he's got to carry on, though.
Genuinely, who would you have?
I hate to say Rob Baxter's star might be declining a little bit. I want Rob
After
Baxter
3
to...
games.
So-
It's too
No. What I mean is, I don't want Rob Baxter...
Four consecutive Premiership finals is that's terrible.
But what I'm saying is, does Rob Baxter find himself in a situation where the ex-Toulouse coach was, which is the game has passed him by? You want to have him at his height, which is probably now. You don't want to wait 2 years and then maybe he comes in and the game's moved on, a few extra steps. Get him in now.
Eddie Jones did what he did with Japan. He's been to 2 World Cup finals.
Three
World Cup finals. Sorry, if you kind of want pedigree, you've got it there. There were question marks 18 months ago. He's answered those question marks now.
What about Jamie Joseph?
For me.
So he would. Sorry.
What about Jamie Joseph? Would you have him?
Just have a repeat.
Yep. Just get Jamie Joseph in.
Well, if it was a
Scott Brown-
disaster, if we were
Tony
knocked
Brown's
out
right.
in the pool stages as in 2015, then I'll go with you. But we just lost in a World Cup final, and I regard that as, on reflection, disappointing, but a success.
But if the argument isn't really that, is it? The argument is, if Eddie is true to his word, like he was when he took up the job and said, I know when I'm leaving, the contract extension is literally just an extension of that. The idea is they've got to phase someone in anyway.
Well,
yeah.
Options are all open at the minute.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want that as the RFU.
No.
And you just said you wouldn't want it.
No, absolutely not.
So if Eddie Jones walked away now, Jamie Joseph might be the most appropriate man. Because the Baxter thing, I love Rob Baxter. My concern would be he has done it in one environment, and he's done it very successfully and taken them to that point from nowhere, from the Championship and below, and 4 consecutive Premiership finals, and the development of talent, and all that is amazing. He has done it in one setup.
Yeah.
It's not like a Jamie Joseph or an Eddie Jones who has done it, or John Mitchell, with mixed results for John Mitchell. But it's not like people who've done it all over the world. So the guy that I'm thinking of, who I'm not sure if England have anyone like this.
Steve Diamond?
Maybe the one setup would be true of that as well.
Okay.
But
Russia, he's done Russia.
Someone who's doing who's making all the right moves to get a job like this in the future would be someone like Ronan O'Gara.
I thought you were going to say Chris Boyd.
Chris Boyd is interesting.
So Ronan O'Gara was
Ronan O'Gara
let me critique
breadth
the
of his experience is incredible.
Yeah, but let me just critique the Ronan O'Gara thing, which is very smart. Until this season, he's never had a head job, has he? So he's head coach of La Rochelle now.
No, and I'm thinking he's on the right trajectory.
He's on the trajectory.
So I would never say Ronan O'Gara going for the Island job now. And I think if he got appointed as the Island job now, which obviously won't be, that would be an absolute disaster. That would be literally the worst move he could make.
Yep.
He needs to continue on the trajectory.
He's got to win something with La Rochelle now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I like what he's done because he's never been the head man. So you can go to Canterbury, you can go to Racing, you can go everywhere. You never carry the can, but you gain the experience.
He's actually doing like almost a reverse John Mitchell.
Which is be head man everywhere and don't do anything and then become a secondary guy.
Yes.
Yes, I like that.
Which is, I prefer the O'Gara approach to building up to the head man.
Yes, agreed.
O'Gara for England?
But I definitely,
not yet.
I definitely think it's quite a football kind of mentality to say, right, get all the young guys in now. Because
I always thought it was a rugby mentality.
No, it's very much a football thing. You used to hear it about England all the time after every major tournament. Get rid of all them, get in a load of kids.
Problem is, if you're working on 4-year cycles, I mean, that's exactly basically what what's his name did?
Lancaster.
Well,
Here's what Lancaster did, and he paid the price for it.
He paid the price for it, but that was quite unique circumstances. The age profile of the team in the 2011 World Cup was aging, long in the tooth, and a lot of players were retiring.
Do you know
whereas now, as we say, the youngest team ever to play in a World Cup final.
So do you know what they put it down to? The weird ages of the England team. Some people do, at least. They go all the way back to 2003. So the 2003 team were together for so long. When they won the World Cup, they almost retired en masse.
Yeah, it was a disaster for England, actually.
Yeah.
And then the next England team came in, and there was no kind of like, the second string would be, I don't know, probably people like Dave Flatman, David Barnes, those sort of guys never really got a fair shot. They wouldn't get blooded like they do now. And since then, England's age profile has been all over the show, all the way up until you get to Lancaster, who then ripped it all up and started again.
Yeah. And arguably, the 2019 vintage benefited from that because there's a lot of players that have got a lot of caps at their relatively tender ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there'll be. I think there should be some turnover and some change.
I think we just carry on, win every game.
Yeah.
And there will be young guys, if they're good enough, they'll earn their spot, as Tom Curry and Sam Underhill have done, for example.
The places that England do need it, they need another option for inside centre, other than Owen Farrell or Manu Tuilagi, because Piers Francis is not it.
Nope.
They need another option for fullback, which Anthony Watson might be, but they need another option. They do need another option for scrum half.
100%. They need another 2 options.
Yes, I agree with that.
And tight head prop.
But they've got some good tight head props.
Harry Williams got a nice
Harry
try today.
Williams, bloody hell.
But you do. You need other guys with the international experience.
Well, some of those, and this is where actually you can, I think, have some legitimate criticism of Eddie Jones for this World Cup. And overall, that's not to discredit all of the positives, but we were not lone voices. Lots of people, ex-players, journalists, whatever, were all saying, what's going on with the scrum half situation? Why have so few players had any game time?
Yep.
Why has he only taken 2? And the same with tight head prop.
So
Same with tight head prop.
the scrum half situation.
You've had 4 years to solve this conundrum, and we're left with just 2 tight head props to take. One of them is Dan Cole.
Yeah, so the scrum half. By the way, you took Rory McConaughey. No knock on him, but did he need to go for 11 minutes?
Yeah.
Joe Cocker-Singer, did he need to go for
Piers Francis?
Piers Francis? Did he need to go? No, of course not. But
Jack Noel, Rory McConaughey. Jack Noel, Rory McConaughey, and Joe Cocker-Singer. Maybe a scrum half who could potentially slot on a wing if you got desperate late in the game. And a tight head prop.
Dan Robson would have been ideal for that, really.
Because Rassie Erasmus's take on the scrum is not that South Africa are way better than England at scrummaging, but he said
I guess they cared more.
Because they've got 3 of them in each position. He said when you look at the amount of minutes that they've played over the tournament, he said ours were fresher. He said the England players have played way more minutes over the World Cup. Even missing a game, Kyle Sinclair, Dan Cole, whatever, Mako Vunipola had all played way more minutes than their South African counterpart. And he said over 7 weeks.
Sure, that's a good thing, though.
Well, he said over 7 weeks, but that does have an impact.
The games against Tier 1 nations, Clive Woodward in his book after 2003 described it as like being in a 60-mile-an-hour car crash.
Yes.
Those high-end games. And
they were small then.
They
were normal blokes then.
They were lighter than the under-20s are now.
Yes.
So you're doing it week after week after week after week after week. And it is, I mean, Sinclair obviously played 2 minutes of the game, but he was touch and go to actually even play that game.
So minutes
hobbled off.
Exactly.
There must be a ratio somewhere of how many minutes you should accrue over what time period.
But
that would be 500 minutes over 2 years or something.
I think if the head coach of the World Cup winning side, whose scrum just annihilated the opposition scrum, says, I don't think it's because England aren't as good at scrummaging. I think it's because my players were fresher because they played less minutes. I might take Rassie Erasmus's word.
Yeah, but it's all guesswork. I mean, I honestly think it's all guesswork because if that could be empirically proven, or should I say, if Eddie Jones doesn't think that, well, I'm happy to listen to Eddie Jones. Or if Warren Gatland didn't think that, I'd listen to Warren Gatland.
So do you think South Africa just miraculously got way better at scrummaging from last week, and England got way worse, or do you think maybe Rassie Erasmus might be on something?
Stronger and better scrummaging.
Yeah, but they didn't. They didn't win loads.
I don't believe that. I as you well know, I don't believe that.
They got in. They did all the body fat calculator directly before the game.
But South Africa didn't have that sort of dominance against Wales last week.
No, and by the way, Wales.
Okay, even against Canada.
But Wales.
Dominance.
Yeah, Wales have never changed their props. Wales have had pretty much the same props throughout the entire tournament.
And this was this weekend was a game too far for them.
Yeah, but the scrum. I mean, looking at the 2 performances, you'd say the Wales performance would be better, particularly at the scrum. So that argument wouldn't hold up just because it's Wales. And the Wales' props are nowhere near as good as England's props. Right?
Well, I think...
or are they?
Well, no, they played South Africa a week earlier.
Okay.
So they had a game less in the tank. And then this weekend was their game.
Or maybe
maybe
they're fresher because they played Wales. I think it's all guesswork.
I think hindsight is always 20/20, but it was insane to only take 2 tight head props.
Yes, I agree with that. Here's what I think. Right, I think coaches say these things to their players to build up. Do you know that veneer of confidence, that veneer of sort of the expectation? So they'll say to them, hey, look, guys, you guys will feel far fresher than your opposite numbers because we've managed your minutes. And meanwhile, the opposition coach will be saying, hey, guys, get on the field now. You're going to be great because you've played more together. You've had more minutes together than your opposite number. They're all playing games. And if Rassie Erasmus had won that game with his props having more minutes, he'd say, well, we were just more battle-hardened. I'm sure it's finger in the air time.
It is, and it's, for me, there is no way you can empirically prove it. Partly because every player will be different.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not about empirically proving, but it's about knowing your players.
Billy Vunipola.
Yeah. Billy Vunipola was the example I was going to give before tournament. But if that was a different player, a Kyle Sinclair, perhaps, or Dankola or Marla, or whoever it is, a different player with a different constitution, a different attitude, and different recovery rates, it's a different scenario.
Yes.
So it's about knowing your players.
I can't disagree with that. Back to tight head props. Of course you take 3. Of course you do. It's bizarre they didn't. Still bizarre. Particularly when they had 8 million wingers.
4-year cycle, England at the very least need to come up with a Andrew Porter, someone who could scrummage both sides, or Jason Leonard, who could scrummage both sides if needed, or just in the next 4 years, find and cultivate and nurture a tight head prop and a scrum half and a fullback.
Do you know who the guy is for that?
Tight head prop. Avian Lewis Roberts.
Yes. But the guy to nurture you a tight head, Warren Gatland. Warren Gatland will come in and he'll pick up the 8th best tight head at Doncaster, right? And before you know it, he will be the tight head for England for decades to come.
He's on the bench for Leeds Met 2s.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's what will happen. You don't realise how much you need Gatland until he leaves. God, Wales is going to be a wasteland though. Absolute wasteland. But on a serious note, how did he know Thomas Francis was going to be this good? How did he know? But he did.
Thomas Francis is very good at holding up a scrum.
But that's all he wants.
I wouldn't have minded that on Saturday.
Yeah.
Get me Thomas Francis. What? No, seriously, do it.
He's English. Honestly, he's English.
Donny Prop. There'll be someone out there. There will be someone.
Well, that you could argue is that and the scrum half depth, and you could argue is the 2 failures of the system to have not brought about a tight head prop which Eddie Jones was confident he could take and would be useful at a World Cup, because clearly he didn't think Harry Williams was that, otherwise he would have taken it.
I, for the life of me, cannot work out the thought process that says Ben Youngs, world class, everyone else not as good as Ben Youngs. It just doesn't stack up to me.
Yeah, it doesn't stack up to me.
It doesn't stack up to me.
Definitely.
That's the biggest critic. And the one thing I will say about Eddie, and I think he is genuinely world class at this, maybe one of the best in the world, is his identification of talent. He knows talent when he sees it.
Marcus Smith.
Well, Marcus Smith.
Who you saw training with Brighton College or whoever it was, as a 16-year-old.
Matt Gitter, as I mentioned 1 million times. Ted Hill. Right. Now, Ted Hill's a guy that's going to have to be put into consideration.
Tom Curry. Or Ben Curry, the one that you picked first.
Yes, exactly.
Ted Hill, again, he's an exceptional prospect, but you're saying Ted Hill, that's somebody who's going to have to... Is that based on his performances or just because he's young?
Absolutely is. The boy's a beast.
He is very good.
He is very good.
He's not yet a world-class talent or even close to the conversation.
No.
He will be in a couple of years' time.
Exactly.
Potentially in a few years' time.
And that's my point. We should carry on the path we are with this squad, and when Ted Hill's performances warrant it, he'll be introduced in the way that Tom Curry was.
Do you know who they did this to? And looking back at it, it was ridiculous. He should have been in the England team 4 or 5 years ago. Mark Wilson. Because Mark Wilson was in a less trendy pack.
Yeah, we were calling for him for a long time.
And if you don't get... sometimes you won't get those performances because if you're not playing in a world-class pack, like the England pack is, maybe you don't... you're not that guy. But you put Ted Hill or Mark Wilson into the England pack, he's one of your best players.
Unless they're playing South Africa.
Unless you play in South Africa, in which case you don't play him at all. And that's a guy that...
Blame Lancaster for that, for not picking Wilson.
Exactly right. Exactly right, Phil. So I'll just say, Ted Hill could be the next Mark Wilson if you don't pick him. And that's a guy that will probably
So you say, JB says Haskell shouldn't have played in 2015.
Why would I say that?
No, I'm joking.
Okay, just making sure. Yeah, Mark Wilson will be a guy who needs to be replaced because he must be 30-something.
29?
I think he's younger than that. He's younger than he looks.
And you don't need to replace someone because they're 30.
Well, 34 for the World Cup.
Look at exactly the point you made earlier, the 03 World Cup winning team.
He was, he was
but they still won a
30
World Cup.
during the World Cup.
Yeah, but they still won a World Cup, right? And that's, I mean, it depends what you want. Do you want to win every? I mean, if you win every game, by definition, you'll win the World Cup. So that's fine.
Well,
but if you're working on World Cup cycles, if you want to nurture,
I don't like this whole age thing. That get them in because they're young, or get rid of them because their age starts with a 3.
So how
are they going to help you in the next game?
Yeah, but how
end of conversation?
How do you nurture a tight head prop if you're not willing to do that?
Well, there is a gap there because Dan Cole is not the second best tight head prop in the UK.
Yeah,
or in England.
It's probably fair to say that is true.
So you do it, and Eddie Jones, in fairness, has done it because Haskell was a key player for the first 2 years. Hartley started every game on their, or pretty much every game on their 19-game winning run.
Yeah.
He's already done it once.
Should I think of tight heads England could bring up?
Well, it's concerning how few there are.
Well, I mean, there's some good lads at Northampton. Painter is quite like
Painter,
him.
yeah.
Who is the big...
Aaron Painter's one. Joe Hayes at Leicester's a young guy.
Who is the big lad who I always liked? Is it Hill?
Paul Hill.
Paul Hill.
I like him a lot, but he doesn't seem to get much game time.
Yeah, he seems to be behind.
Jamal Ford-Robinson, obviously a shoo-in.
Obviously
a shoo-in.
To finish this,
Yes.
I've just looked back at the 2011 squad. Do you know how many props England had in the 2011 squad?
Three, and so 6, I'd say.
I would have said 6.
So originally they had 5.
Okay,
because
they
they
have a swing?
had Matt Stevens who could prop on both.
Oh, okay.
And that was pre-2 reserve props on the bench. When Andrew Sheridan, God, it seems like a long time ago, Andrew Sheridan playing. When Andrew Sheridan was ruled out through injury, who was he replaced with?
Andrew Sheridan might have been replaced by Julian White, something like that.
Nope.
No, because it would have been Loosehead.
No, Andrew Sheridan's a tight head, was he not?
No,
he was a
Loosehead.
loosehead. Yeah, of course, because he got knocked out by Julian White. He was a tight head. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Andrew Sheridan.
Turner. Someone like Turner.
Nope. You're not going to get it because it's not a prop.
What?
Martin Corrie. Simon Shaw.
You are much closer. Martin Corrie is the closest you've been.
An 8.
So a back 5.
Number 8.
Moody.
No, Leicester number 8.
Waldrum. But who looks like he could play prop? Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe they sent him off a photo.
Find me someone the same size and shape as Matt Stevens.
Yeah, done.
So they went to the World Cup with 4 props.
What?
They had Dan Cole, Davy Wilson, Corbisiero, and Matt Stevens.
Wow.
As their 4 props.
Davy Wilson seems like a lifetime
That's insane.
ago.
Yeah, that is crackers. But they had 3 scrum halves, 3 hookers, only 3 centres. Although I guess they had Flood and Wilkinson who could have played 12.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exciting stuff. Who watched the third place match?
In the background.
Kinda.
Didn't see. I've not even seen the highlights.
Yeah, I watched it in the background. It kind of, I don't want to get into it too much.
No.
And it's very easy to say these things with hindsight, but Ben Smith was the best player on the pitch. Ben Smith was unreal.
He
Weird.
was.
Yeah, yes.
Weird that Unreal players play Unreal.
Yes. He was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Wales did quite well.
They did.
Early on to keep it close, but New Zealand were far stronger. And this got me thinking about the... do you remember like Dungeons and Dragons type games, or going back to kind of what was just about my era as a kid, Pokemon type games?
Yes.
And you play a fire type Pokemon against a grass type Pokemon.
Makes sense.
Fire's going to win.
Of course.
You play a water type Pokemon against the fire type Pokemon. The water's going to win.
Yep.
And water against grass. Grass is going to win.
Yeah.
And so you have these little triangles, and I don't quite have it fixed, but there is a type of game plan, or it's not even a type of game plan. It's a type of team. Like Wales can beat South Africa and have done so 5 out of the last 6, or there or thereabouts. Wales can beat England.
Yes.
Wales cannot beat New Zealand. There is no way that Wales can beat New Zealand. Wales haven't beaten New Zealand since the 1970s.
Well, look, I think Gatlin wanted to put on a show. Throw it wide, give Lane the ball. It doesn't work, does it? We all know it doesn't work. Why bother? Now, Twitter being Twitter, obviously it's an outrage. This is a new one, isn't it? In the age of player welfare, why are they playing a third place playoff?
Great question.
Grow up. Exactly. I'll give you a clue why they do it. Because it's their job. Their job title on their business cards, if they have such a thing, says professional rugby player. It means occasionally you've got to put on your boots and play professional rugby.
Do one.
And get a chance to play the third best team in the world. Or the second best team in the world, as the official rankings are after the World Cup.
I mean, it shouldn't exist because it's not very good. But to say you shouldn't play rugby for player welfare, if we're going to take that example, why are we playing these meaningless matches? Cancel half of the Pro 14. Halfway through the season, right? Look at the bottom half of the table. Go, right, there's literally no point in you playing any. Yeah, no. Stop. Yeah, no more. You just don't play. Don't play. It's dangerous.
Pre-season friendlies?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. No point.
So, what a nonsense.
Yeah, it is. I think we should, again, just to go returning back to some positives, it was fantastic. The South Africans, I love the fact that Scout Brits is a World Cup winner. The nicest man in rugby.
Who retired, who officially retired after Saracens won everything last year. Everything this last season.
Just one more trophy.
Just what? And the best one.
One more trophy.
One more trophy. Just make it the best one.
And the oldest player to win a World Cup.
We should make a list of definitive sports exits. So Peyton Manning winning the Super Bowl would be a good one.
Yeah, so few players get to do it on their own turn.
Yeah.
Johnny Wilkinson bowing out with Heineken Cup.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good one.
With back-to-back Heineken Cups.
Ray Lewis won a Super Bowl on his last game. Trying to think of some others.
Fairy tale endings.
Very few get the fairy tale.
Yeah, there you go. Rugby fairy tale endings. Help us out at Rugby Podcast. Tweet us. Who in rugby has had fairy tale endings?
Well, Dan Carter.
Dan Carter.
Oh, yeah, Dan Carter.
Although he didn't retire after that.
No, you're right, actually, because he went to Japan.
No, he went wild.
Racing in Japan.
Yeah, Racing in Japan. So, no, it doesn't count.
But that was the last game Richie played?
Recorded, yes.
Yeah.
Captain in 2 consecutive World Cup finals.
Inductee number 143 to the Rugby World Hall of Fame.
Congratulations.
And owner of an Eggchasers tie.
He is, yeah. He's wearing that this weekend.
Yeah. And obviously a lot's been said about Siya Kolisi. I think he spoke brilliantly after the game. His leadership qualities, clearly he's done that, but I think he's a great ambassador for the game.
There are certain people who just have that effect on you. Like I was mentioning last week, Johan Ackerman, who I was lucky enough to interview this week on Rugby Dungeon. Just plug that there. Just plug that one. Siya Kolisi would be up there. I mean, we were lucky enough to interview him in Monaco, and he was genuinely amazing. He was just genuinely amazing guy.
Was that the audio that we lost?
Yeah, that's the one that we lost. We had 5 minutes of Siya Kolisi. 5 minutes! It's worth a fortune now.
We lost.
The collective.
Yeah, we win as a team and lose as a team.
Exactly, exactly, Tim. Exactly. That's why we're so successful as an Eggchasers trio, because we've got each other's backs at all times. That
there, Tim, is why Phil is the Siya Kolisi of Eggchasers.
He is. He genuinely is. And very, very quickly then, a team of the tournament. What I have noticed...
Oh, no, not a team of the tournament.
No, very quick. We can run through this. What I have noticed is all of a sudden, after South Africa win, everyone's team of the tournament is suddenly stacked with South Africans.
Yes.
Interestingly,
Matt Dawson's
not Matt Dawson's.
Last week, not a single one.
Weird, hey?
Well, it's weird. Even after that final, I'm still going. I think if I was combining the South Africa team, I'd still only pick maximum half a dozen South Africans.
Sadly, you've done what I've done, and what all the English press do is we focus too much on our domestic players because we know them so well. And now we've seen the matchup one-on-one, you'd struggle to make that argument now, I think.
So anyway, team of the tournament. Loads of people will, do these. So there's just a few players that are not going to get mentioned that I think should be in there. Like all of a sudden, Jamie George is the best hooker of the tournament. He had a great tournament, but Shota Hori should get that number 2 shirt. 100%.
Although Joe Taufefe got nominated for World Rugby Player of the Year this year, which was interesting.
He's pretty good.
He's not bad.
Token gesture for a tier 2 player.
No, he's good.
He's a good player. There are so many more appropriate tier 2 players from this tournament. That is...
Shota Hori is a wonderful shout.
And Hymeno would be another one.
Leach. Matsushima or Fukuoka.
Yeah.
The scrum half or
Cool.
fly half
I actually
Tamura.
thought all 4 of Japan's props were superb, both in their scrimmaging ability and also their handling ability.
Yeah. So, and all of a sudden, everyone's back row has got Tom Curry, Peter Steph-Toy, and although he's not a 7, so it shouldn't be. He should just because he wears 7.
2 6s.
And Vermeulen, but I think Jimeno won't get named in team of the tournament in a lot of places, but he should.
Yeah. Peter Steph-Toy definitely gets in for me. There's no ifs or buts.
And Peter Steph-Toy, who is now the newly appointed World Rugby Player of the Year.
Rightly so.
Year.
Yes. I would have given it to Colby.
Nah. No.
But it's a tight call.
Someone's got to get over that gain line.
It's a tight call.
Someone's got to do
Oh, he's
the hard
brilliant.
work.
He's outstanding.
I'm very happy with.
Yeah. I think it's a great shout. Vermeulen was amazing in the final, and I suppose maybe he should make the team of the tournament for that alone. But I think he was exceptional in the final. But I just think there's a lot of players that are going to suddenly, like Matsushima. I've just been reading some well-known rugby names saying, "Here's my team of the tournament," and all of a sudden, Matsushima is not in there.
Yeah.
So like, what's he playing at?
You have to have one of those.
Yeah.
I think
You have to have
Matsushima's the
Radradra.
second best.
Radradra. Exactly.
Has to be in there.
Yeah.
Radradra was unbelievable.
Yeah, Matsushima's the second best Japanese winger. I thought the other one was better.
Fukuoka.
Yeah.
I thought he was quality.
Josh Adams Josh Adams would
Yeah.
be
Josh
a
Adams
shout.
is fair. One of those guys. has
AJ
to be
McGinty?
Came off the bench.
I tell you what.
Anyway, no.
Okay.
Another. We'll do the domestic podcast. We'll do the domestic podcast another time. Right. So actually, I genuinely like some more. If you know of a good rugby fairy tale,
Yeah.
there must have been some 03 players that retired after.
Yeah, I
that.
was thinking that, but I'm sure, in my mind, I'm sure there was a thing in that England camp saying you're not allowed to retire because it was going to be like a big distraction.
Because a load of them still made it to 2005.
Martin
didn't they?
Johnson was his last game, wasn't
It
it?
was his last game, but he
Yeah.
didn't retire after
And
the
Neil
game.
Back,
Yeah.
No, because didn't Neil Back make 2005?
No.
2007.
No, 2005 Lions.
Oh,
I'm
Lions.
thinking.
Oh, interesting.
No, so I'm pretty sure they had a conversation in that squad, and I might be lying through my teeth here. But it was something like, no one's talking about retirement. We're playing the game. They did retire, but they retired like 2 or 3 weeks afterwards.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I'm sure of it. Martin Johnson did not retire on that day.
So look at these.
Yeah.
Neil Back did tour in 2005. I'm sure he did. I'm sure he's about 35 or 36 as well.
So Neil Back allegedly
36. Yeah.
Was-
Listener, I know.
hi Neil, was coaching England before he ever played for them. Do you know that little fun fact? He was doing strength and conditioning for the England team before he ever got capped.
That's cool.
That is cool.
That is very cool.
He used to take his conditioning very, very well. I'm sure he still does. But like in the days where bringing your own sandwiches to training was
I
taken
remember
seriously.
there was a group pool stage in 2003 where his shirt ripped and he took off his shirt and because he was only small. I've met him a couple of times actually. Stood next to him. He's not a tall bloke.
Didn't you
but
not
he
get
was-
him into Mojo's in Manchester once?
No, it was
Oh, yeah.
Leeds. There was an Oktoberfest do in Leeds, and I was getting a friend in. I was drunk.
To the mic,
this was
Phil.
in about 2009 or
Phil,
something like that.
to the mic.
Sorry.
Thank you.
It's about 2009. And I was trying to get a friend in outside, and I noticed him like waiting outside. There was a massive queue. And I was, Neil Back, how's it going? Just said hi to him. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm trying to get in, but I can't be bothered queuing. There's some of my mates are inside. I was like, oh, right. I'll find the bouncer who looks most like a rugby player. I'll go up to chat to him and say, look, World Cup winner, absolute legend, Neil Back is outside. Can you get him in? And I wandered off and promptly forgot about that conversation and went back to drinking Steins and left him outside.
I remember being hammered and meeting Luke Abraham outside of Mojo's in Manchester.
Good ponytail.
Yeah, and I said, oh, does anyone ever mention that you look like Sebastian Chabal? And yeah, all the time. And then frosty silence, and I went back inside. And that must be like 10 years ago now. Maybe more than that, 15 years ago. Joy.
Right.
We've done everything.
Yeah, that's the World Cup over. What a fantastic... Well, yeah. If you've just started listening to our podcast during the World Cup and looking at our download numbers, there's quite a few of those. Thank you very much.
Yeah, lots of them. Thank
Hit
you.
subscribe because whether it's international rugby, whether it's domestic rugby, we're here. all the time, every week. The only podcast that's there 52 weeks a year.
Never stops, relentless, like Peter Steph Toy.
Yes, too right. The PSTD has given quite a lot of England players PTSD after that final.
Well done.
And congratulations, South Africa.
Yes.
Enjoy your moment.
Well deserved. Team. So they win a bit like Ireland did last year, but more importantly, they won the World Cup. They won Player of the Year in Peter Steph Toy. They won Team of the Year, and they won Coach of the Year in Rassie Erasmus, which all well deserved.
Yes.
Exactly.
The one thing that France won this year,
Go on.
Untamak.
just one thing, Roman Untamak,
Breakthrough
player of the Year,
Brilliant.
and that again fully deserved.
They are going to be. No, we'll talk about France another time, but they are going to be.
Put it on the whiteboard. 2023 Home World Cup winners.
Tell you what, now that's a tour. Right, okay, we're all done.
At Rugby Podcast on Twitter, he's Jay Beardmore, I'm at Cocker. Phil is lurking somewhere, and England didn't win, so he will not reveal where he is lurking. But he might be sliding into your DM soon.
If you're lucky.
Let the boys play.
Wait. Very well done.
Should we go and have a pit stop?
Just listen back to this now. Okay, one more. Just do one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10.
Yeah, that's funny. We're still recording.